Hello everybody and welcome to the Quilter's Apothecary. Today the video you're about to watch is part of our Patreon Quilt Along series. With that Quilt Along series what we do is we actually film and you are quilting along with me every step of me quilting a custom quilt. So I hope you enjoy this, and if you want to see more, what we do is we release about one out of every 12 here on YouTube. But if you want to see a ton more content, head over to Patreon and subscribe. I hope to see you there and enjoy the video. The wool is going to be towards the top, and then the 80-20 is going to be towards the back, so that way it will hang completely straight. Now, whenever I'm doing a filler or any type of an edge to edge, I always like to use my screws. I do have a tutorial on that. Ruler itself, and I want to make sure to walk my hand with the ruler so that way I'm not holding my hand back here and the ruler is bobbing up and down and has the opportunity to go up over the ruler foot. Okay, so now to start, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to follow this gentle curve. I'm just going to use my regular ditch ruler, pivot it just a little bit so that I can stay right in that ditch. Take that down as far as it can go, and it actually made it right down to the bottom tip. Now I think I'm going to go ahead and do this section just to kind of give that some closure and then follow that back around. And again, it's not a straight line. I'm just pivoting my ditch ruler because there's very little curve, but there's a little bit of curve there. I'm going to follow this back. Stop. Pivot. Come back up. Follow that. Okay, so now that's done. Move that out of the way. And now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put this in place, and I'm going to follow that curve. And this is what you do when you don't have a curve ruler that matches the exact curve. You get something as close as you can, and then you slowly pivot it. And you want to make sure to keep your hand near where your hopping foot is. That way you can have a lot more control. Pivot, take your time. As I work my way through this quilt and do more of the curves, I'll probably speed up. Now this is, I'm seasoned so that works, but this is actually pretty dangerous to have my hand right here and be quilting way over here, because this can flop and that can go right up and over and the needle can go in there. So again, I can pivot this. This is the same curve all the way through. Line that up. Come up, follow that, pivot, grab my ditcher, and now I've got my second curve down here to do. Pivot that curve, stay as close to that ditch as I can get. Now that's good. So I'm going to lock my stitches, and then we're going to move over here and we're going to do this one exactly the same way. Lock my stitches. Take my ruler, again, line that up. And you can kind of see now, after we did the spray starch, how much fullness that took out. Took out a lot of potential areas where we would have had tucks. Spray starch is something you should have in every surface quilting studio. Not the Mary Ellen's Best Press. That's good for some things, but to take out fullness, it doesn't do the trick. And I never hit anything with a steam iron. I want to just spray it and let it dry naturally. If I'm in a hurry, then I keep my hair dryer over in the drawer of tools, and that's when I might pull that out. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to ditch this section. Again, it's got that light curve, so I'm going to use my straight ditcher, but it's going to pivot just like we did with the curve. Over here. Keep that nice pivot. And again, going through like this and doing all of the ditch work on this particular row before I go in and do my filler work is going to keep this quilt from having too much distortion from the fullness. Okay, again, we're going to pivot that curve. That's where that handle will come in handy. Use it for leverage. Take your time. I have myself at 12 stitches per inch. I am on my regular stitch regulator. Obviously right now I have a couple different brands of machines, but I am using my Handy Quilter Forte with the Pro Stitcher on it. Right now I'm in freehand mode. My gears are all disengaged, or my track, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so now these two are done. Now whatever I'm going to decide to do in here, and I will be deciding to do something in there, that's going to come later. I'm not quite sure yet what I'm going to be doing in there. So now I'm going to continue and I'm going to work out here. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and any of these edge areas, I'm going to go ahead and go in 1/2 inch. I'm going to chalk some of that. I think here on, let's shift that camera just a little bit to this guy right here. On this one, I'm just going to put a line up through, and I'm going to go 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, just on these outer edges, just to kind of give it a little bit of a framework. Okay, so before I go do the outer edge, I actually decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I'm going to do in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself 3/4. And let's go over. Now, I have on this curved ruler, what I have is the sew lines marked here. So I've got 1/4, 1/2 inch. So now if I use the second one, 1/2 inch, right at the edge of the actual curve, then that's going to give me 3/4 inch on the inside. So I'm going to go right here, line that up, and again, now I'm going to come back there, and I'm going to take my time on this. I'm going to pivot it. All of these curves are going to be the tedious part. Now I'm here, and again, I'm keeping that curve right on that seam line. So now my etchings, you can see the curved etchings, and even though that's not a perfect match for that curve, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that curve right here, right near the hopping foot, right on that seam. So as I work my way around, I'm going to keep pivoting my ruler, keep pivoting so that this second line stays right on that seam line of that curve right there. Around, stop, my ruler, line it up, again, pivot, there we go. So now we have that inside curve there. So now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to travel that ditch up. and down, sorry. And now I'm going to be a little bit awkward, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have that ruler behind my foot, because in front I can't tell how far in I am. So I'm going to keep this right here. And that's not down far enough, so I'm going to go right to there. And you probably see it a little better from that camera angle over here. So again, I'm going to keep that lined up. And if this were a perfect curve, this would be the time for some sticky on the back of the ruler. But because I'm going to have to keep pivoting this ruler, that's not going to be the way that this will work. So I'm going to get down there. I'm going to just keep that ruler pivoting as I work my way around. And again, I'm not going to be aiming for perfection. I'm going to do my best. You want to remember in quilting that with the regular custom quilt, the human eye is going to self-correct a lot of the inconsistencies it sees. Come around, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to follow this stitch over, and then I'm going to repeat that same process on this one. And now we'll have that nice channel in here so that this is, because this is pretty wide, this is like 2.5 inches right here. And if I would have left this, then what would happen is once it's removed from the frame, this would get puckers and distortion. And now with that in there, it's just going to give it a nice texture and still look pleasing to the eye. Excuse my head. Pivot, following that line here. Let's see. Get the angle right. Okay. Lock my stitches. Okay. So now, again, that's how we're going to handle the rings on the double wedding ring. Okay, so now right up here, as I work my way across, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Bowen white chalk, of course, because I'll be able to see that. And what I'm going to do first is on the big triangles, I'm going to line that up, and I'm going to line up a straight line on my ruler on the top seam so that I can locate that center and do that. Because when I come to this section, what I'm going to do is 1/2 inch up, over, down, over, up, over, just to kind of give that texture. And then what I'm going to do is inside of these blocks right here. And I think I figured out what I've decided to do here. On this section, what I'm going to do is, obviously this is kind of knotted and winding in between. Let's go out a little bit if we can. Okay, so obviously these guys, we're not talking about this part where the double wedding ring section is on point. We're talking about these over here where we have these hexagons kind of winding in and out of each other. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my straight of way. When I say my straight of way, this is going to be my straight of way. and this is going to be where it tucks under. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come all the way down with my 1/2 inch. Half inch. Do I want 1/2 inch or do I want 3/4? Let me try it. Let's audition this. Here's 3/4. There's 3/4. If I use 3/4, that's still going to leave a nice pocket in there. I kind of like that. If I go 1/2 inch, this will be a little wider in there, and I could get some distortion if I don't put filler in there. And I'd like to not put filler in there if I can at all avoid it. Save myself a few days of work on that. Because the filler isn't going to add anything, I don't think, because I'm going to be putting stuff in here. Okay, so again, where there's the straightaway, when I come up there, I'm going to go ahead and tuck it under. But on this part where you have kind of like the diagonal here, that I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do 3/4. I'm not going to worry about that fabric. With those lines being off, I'm more concerned about my quilting lines. 3/4. And then here at the end, I'm actually only going to do a 1/2. And it's going to stop there. Okay, but that's going to tuck under there. So same thing here. Here is my arrow. I'm going to go to a 1/2 inch there. But where there's this straight, that's going to tuck right under wherever that would be. It's going to give us that visual effect of winding under, because that's where it would tuck under. And you'll be able to tell here especially. So we'll go to 3/4. And again, I'm not worried about the fabric. And if there's any distortion there, I'm worried about my quilting lines. There's that. Line that up like that. And then that's going to tuck right under. So this line is going to go right up to that line right there. This line, the 1/2 inch, will stop right there. Just like that, because there's no tuck there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to mark these out across, and then I'm going to start at the other end, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quilt that up. So now I have finished all of our gray lines around the hexagon, and actually I went ahead, since I had the thread color in, and filled in the hexie, which we're going to show in the next shot how I did that. But now we're going to go into the yellows. And of course, because I'm using a different color thread, I didn't want to use the gray to fight with the gray lines in there. I'm using the matching yellow. I'm going to go ahead, pick up my stitches, lock my stitches right in this ditch so that every time I lock off, it's not going to cause anything funny on the back. Okay, and now I have chalked in 3/4 of an inch on each side and then a 1/2 of an inch down here. And I'm simply going to follow that ditch. Again, I am on 12 stitches per inch. Pause, slide. Over. Line it up. All the way back. Lock my stitches, and I'm going to do that twice. And again, I'm moving my machine very little. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is snip my threads. Okay, so now that's how I'm going to be handling all of the inside yellows to give that texture. Now we're going to move up here. So up here, we're going to actually be starting from the edge and just on any of the outer yellows. I'm going to come in, come down, and on this one I go all the way back, over, line it up, all the way back, over, Now I'm going to come to the next block. I'm going to travel in the ditch a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in that one. Okay, so line that up. Down, and that's the angle, that's the 1/2 inch out. Line that up, make sure I'm nice and straight. Double check my line there, and now I can go ahead, travel out, and now I would simply travel over this way. To this one, I'm going to repeat that. And then I'm going to travel to this one, repeat that, to this one, to this one, and then I will be done with all of the outside ones. And then we'll move into, of course, the all of the inside ones, which we've already just shown you how I'm doing with the different color thread. So on this small block, what we're going to do is I am simply going to go in 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to chalk that 3/4 of an inch. 3/4 of an inch, and again I'm using my Bohin chalk, B-O-H-I-N. You can always go to our website and look at it, and only the white. That's all I'll ever use. And I know I keep mentioning that, but that's important. Let me darken that just a little bit. And I use this on anything that's not white, because even on this light gray and even on this yellow, it shows up enough for me to see. So now I've got the 3/4 inch in there. Now I'm going to take my machine, I'm going to lock myself right in the corner there. Okay, and now I'll use the square ruler so it's a little easier for you to see on the film. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way around there and echo that in. Of course, I've ditched around everything. Line that up. Line that up. Line that up. Okay, and now I'm simply going to go in here and I'm going to fill that up, and that's going to give me that wonderful positive negative space like on our other hexagon shaped medallion. Put that on cruise. And whenever I'm doing a filler or any type of an edge to edge, I always like to use my cruise. And I do have a tutorial on that to check up. It's called the cruise mode, start speed mode. Different machines call it different things. And it's simply the jacked up sticks regulator. In other words, when I come to a stop, the machine is still going to move. But it's not going to come to a stop, so it's not going to drag or pull me as I'm doing my filler. And I'm simply filling in with some swirls and a few feathers. Kind of my standby filler. There we go. Locked. Up. Pull. Pull away. Grab your stitches. Come back. Go down. Up. Pull away, get your bobbin thread, make sure you have a good 6 or 7 inches underneath, and pop that knot up, trim it, and now we have a nice textured square.